Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Mem Tes Amud Aleph. 4 lines from the bottom. Our Mishnah stated that a person can make a payis, he can cast lots to give his household different portions of food. Says the Gemara, Im bnei beiso, im bona v'im bnei beiso, in v'im acher loy. Only with his household can he go ahead and give a payis, cast lots for the portions of food that they're going to eat. But mashma, other people cannot do this. My timer, why is it not permissible for everybody else to also cast lots if they're sitting together with their chaverim and make lots? Who's going to get this portion? Who's going to get that portion? Answers the Gemara, K'de Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Dom Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Bnei Chabura hamakpidin ze al ze, oivrim mishum mida, umishum mishkal, umishum minyan, umishum loivin uparim b'yontif. He states the reason is because they're makpid with one another. If they get a difference in size, they're going to measure it, or in the amount, or in the weight, they're going to be measuring the differences, whereby that's usher to do on Shabbos and in Yontif. On top of Kuf Mem Tes Amud Beis, Ubkedivrei Hilal Av Mishum Ribis, we learned the previous daf that when it comes to a person who lends a loaf of bread to his neighbor, and there might be an issue normally of Sab B'Sam Midrabanan and Ribis Dirabanan. Here, even when it comes to a loaf of bread that a person normally is not makbid about, Hillel says there's a concern that if the wheat will to go up in value between the time that he borrows the bread and time that he gives it back, there'll be an issue of ribis, and therefore be usr. So all of these people would be makbid one against the other if they received a portion that was different than that we'd have liked to receive. And therefore, for all of these reasons, it's usr to do so on Shabbos to make a payis. Ihochi asked the Gemara, Bonov Mnei Beiso Nami. So then say the same problem exists when it comes to children in the household. The answer says the Gemara, Bonov Mnei Beiso Hainu Taimek Rav Yehuda Marav. Dom Rav Yehuda Marav Muter Lahalvois Bonov Mnei Beiso Beribis Kedei Lahatimon Tam Ribis. A person is mutter even to lend his child with ribis because he's teaching him the sourness, the bitterness of the Isser of ribis. In other words, since they are not going to be makbid, they understand all of this belongs to their father anyways. So therefore, they're not makbid when he charges them ribis, because it's only for their education. So too over here, when it comes to making a payis for one's household, and thereby he gives one person one portion, while another child a different portion, they're not makbid. They understand it all belongs to their father, and therefore he's not doing it other than so that it should not be kina amongst them. But if certainly they would be makbid, then it would be a problem. Ihochi asked the Gemara, if that's so, Mana gedolo kineged mana kitananami, then why is it only something that's more or less the same amount or the same size? It should even be if it's a big versus a small mana portion. Answers the Gemara, en hochenami, that's true. When it comes to one who makes a payis for his household, it could even be with different sized portions. V'chisure mechsera, and the Mishnah was lacking words. V'hochi ktani, and this is how it teaches. Mefis adam im bonov v'im bnei beisoy ala shulchan afilu mana gedola keneged mana ketana. That a person can make a payis, he can cast lots when it comes to different portions, even different sizes of portions for his household. My taimo, like we just stated, Kid Rav Yehuda Marav, like Rav Yehuda explained that the household is not makbid. And since they are not makbid, they're not precise in terms of the measurements and the amounts and the sizes, they understand that's all belonging to their father. And thereby they are only soymech al shulchan avihem, whereby whatever portion they get, they will not then be exacting. Says the Gemara, Im bonav im bnei soyin. The Gemara is medayik, that's only we said with one's household. Im acherim loy, with others, however not. My time was the reason, like we said before. Kid Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel, because since they are exacting, they are makbid with the different sizes, the different weights, and so on, thereby they would come to then measure or weigh, etc. And that's also to be done on Shabbos or in Yontif. Mana gedoyla kineged mana ketana af bechol la'acherim aser. That means to say that a big portion kineged a small portion, even during the week, would be prohibited, not only on Shabbos for other people. Says the Gemara, my time, what's the reason? Mishum kuvia. Because just like when it comes to one who rolls dice, it's a form of gambling, and a person doesn't truly think that he's going to the mischayev when he loses. He intends to win. And therefore, if he does lose, he's not giving up the money belev sholem. So too over here, when it comes to a group of people who make a pious, who will get a large portion, who will get a small portion, even during the week is prohibited because there's a form of gezel d'Rabbanan. In a smach, the person just doesn't truly rely on the fact that he's going to lose. And thereby, again, when he has to then give up the money, it's not with a full heart. The Gemara now quotes the Mishnah saying, Matilin chaloshin, you could go ahead and make lots, make a pious when it comes to the karbonos. My avaloi al hamonos, but then the Mishnah said, but not al hamonos. So why did it say you can do so on Yontif, but you cannot do al hamonos? What does it mean you cannot do on the portions? That means to say, if indeed one needs to make a goral for the kaihanim on Yontif itself, for a korban that fell out on Yontif, then indeed they can do so. But if it's already that which was brought on Erev Yontif, and now it's Yontif, they did not yet mechalek the korban between the kohanim, that is prohibited to be done. Says the Gemara, Pshita, that's Poshit. No, Ma would say, or you might have thought to say, Hoyel v'ksi v'amcha k'merivei kohen. They compare Klal Yisrael to the merivei kohen, the kohen who are fighting with one another. They quarrel. Thereby, we see that the kohanim, in order then to mefayes, we make a pious, we make a goral. There shouldn't be a zilzul in kachim and mevazeh the kachim. So therefore, make a goral that the kohanim could go ahead and mechalek the korban without any fights. So we think afilu monos dechol nami, even if indeed they did not do so the day before, and now it's Yontif. So therefore, you can also make a goral. Komash malan, since they could have done it on Erev Yontif, therefore they're not allowed to do it today on Yontif. Varav Yaakov bered Bas Yaakov. Now, once we had a statement of Rabbi Yaakov, the son of Bas Yaakov, before, we're going to now bring another statement that's unrelated. Says the Gemara, Kol shechaveroi ne'enash al yodoi ein machnisin oisoi b'mechitzos shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A person who has somebody else punished on his behalf, meaning to say that he is involved in his punishment, then it says over here, I saw the Mefarshim explain that because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chayfetz, his ratzon is that he's somebody who is moichel, he's over al pesha, whereby if a person is not moichel, he causes somebody else to be punished on his behalf, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have chafetz boy, he doesn't have a ratzon for that person to be within his mechitzos. Says the Gemara, Minolam, where do we know that this is so? The Gemara attempts to then prove from the following. It talks about over here Achav, where there are 400 Nevi'im who told Achav that he's going to be successful in battle. One Navi came to him and said, all of those 400 Nevi'im are not telling the truth. And therefore, he did not listen to him. Says the Gemara, Ileimo. Mishum dechsiv, you're going to say it's because the following pasuk related to Achav. Vayomer Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Mi yifate es Achav. Who is going to then seduce Achav? V'ya'el, v'yipol, b'Ramos Gilad, and tell him that he's going to fall in the battle of Ramos Gilad. Vayomer ze b'choi v'ze oimer b'choi. And this one, the ministering angels said this one, and the other one said this, like this. V'yatza haruach, and a ruach went out. Vaya'amod lifnei Hashem, and stood before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Vayoyim, and he said, Ani afatenu, I will convince Achav and tell him that he's not going to be successful in battle. Vayomer, and it says, Eitzei, I will go out. Vayisi ruach sheker b'fi kol nevov. And there was a ruach sheker in all of the mouths of the Nevim. Vayomer, and he said, Tefate, you were seduced. V'gam tuchal, and you were told that you can go ahead and overcome your enemy. Say, go out va'aseh kain, and go ahead and do this. Va'amrinan my ruach, we say, what is this ruach that we're talking about? Am Rabbi Yochanan zeh rucha shel Navois. Navois was the one who was framed. He had a vineyard, a kerem, that was adjacent to Achav's palace. And Achav's wife, the Rasha, she framed him by saying that she got people to give Eidu Sheker, that he said HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name falsely, and thereby he was killed, whereby the vineyard came to Achav. He was the automatic hire as a result of being the king. You might say, and therefore Navois, after he was killed, so his ruach went to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and said, I'm going to go ahead and go to Achav. Omar Rav, what does it mean, say in the pasuk? Say mechitzos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go out for my mechitzah. So here we seem to have a proof to the statement that we made, that a person is going to be responsible in causing the oynish of somebody else. He's not going to be zoichet to be mechitzos HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is the oynish that Navos got. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I don't want to be in my mechitzah. Says the Gemara, you have no proof from here. V'dilma hasam hainu time over there. Perhaps the reason is, it states, doiver shkorim lo yikoin. Those who speak falsehood, they shall not have any substance. And therefore, since it was a dover sheker, it was a ruach sheker, therefore, Novos was not in his mechitza, not because he caused his oynish. Gemara now attempts another pasuk. Here it has to do with Nebuchadnezzar, Elamehacha. Sovata koloin mikavoid. You were satiated with humiliation, then instead of being satiated from glory, Shesei gam ato v'ha'orel. Drink also you and the uncircumcised. Says the Gemara, Sovata koloin mikavoid. You were satisfied with humiliation instead of being satisfied with glory, with kavod. Who's this referring to? Nebuchadnezzar. Shesei gam ata v'ha'orel. Zet Tzidkiya. This is referring to Tzidkiya. So the Gemara wants to say that Tzidkiya, Hamelech, he was the one who was responsible for Nebuchadnezzar's oynesh, whereby he was not zoichet to be the mechitza of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Gemara to ask on this proof, Chada, first of all, the Kule Kro Benuvra Ksiv. The entire pasuk, including the latter part that we said was going towards Tzidkiya, is really referring to Nebuchadnezzar when it calls him an Orel. Ve'od, and further, Tzidkiya Tzadika. Tzidkiya was a tzaddik. My Havale Ma'avidle. What should he have done? He was just a victim. And the Gemara is going to explain how Nebuchadnezzar, he wanted to then do Mishkav Zochar with Tzidkiya. And he was merely a victim. How would he be then responsible then for the punishment of Nebuchadnezzar, as if he shouldn't be the Mechitza of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Dom Rav Yehuda Marad, the Gemara explains, the time that Rosh Nebuchadnezzar wanted that horrible act, that egregious act of Mishkav Zochar to Tzidkiya, the pasuk goes on to the Gemara will explain. Elamehacha, rather from here a third. The Gemara is going to explain shortly, but before it explains, it brings a proof for the statement that we made that a person who's responsible for somebody else's oynesh is not going to be the mechitza of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Elamehacha gam onosh latzadik loy tov. The pasuk in Tehillim says also the punishment for the tzaddik is not going to be good. Explains the Gemara, Ein loy tov ela ra. If it's not going to be good, it refers to ra. Stephen states, Ki loy kel chofetz resha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not desire resha. Ato lo yargurcha ra. You ra will not dwell. You will not dwell with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzaddik ato Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are a tzaddik. V'lo yargur ben begurcha ra. And ra will not dwell with you. And therefore the one who caused somebody else to be ne'nash through him, that's considered to be Ra, and therefore he will not be Zoich to be in the Mechitza of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My mashma dahai chaloshim. The Gemara now says, going back to that which we stated in the Mishnah, that you cannot make Garalim, but you could make Garalim for Kohanim. Lishna Gemara asks, my mashma dahai chaloshim lishna hapurahu. How do we know that chaloshim is a language of casting lots, of making a Garal? Dirshu brings a pasuk. Eich nafalta mishamayim. Again, referring to Nebuchadnezzar. We're also going to tie together what we said before about Nebuchadnezzar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Eich nafalta mishamayim. How did you fall from Shamayim? Referring to Nebuchadnezzar. Halel, the one who was shining. Ben Shochar, the one who was the son of the dawn. Nigdata la'aretz. You were cut down to the ground. Choylesh al goyim. You made choylesh. You made a goral on the goyim. Now we explain what is this garal that we're referring to over here. That this is the word that the Mishnah uses chaloshim as a garal. Omar Rabba bar Rav Huna melamed shahaya matil pur al gedolei malchus leida eze ben yoima shel mishkav zochar. After he conquered each king, he would then require that they do mishkav zochar with him, and he would cast lots to know whose turn was first. Every day was a different king. V'ksiv, it states in the pasuk, kol malchei goyim kulam. All of the malchei goyim, all of them. The rest of the verse goes on to say, kulam shochvu b'chavo. They all lie down in glory. Ish beveisoi, each one in his house. In contrast to the ones who were with Nebuchadnezzar. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan shenachu mimishkav zochar. They rested, humiliated from mishkav zochar from Nebuchadnezzar. The Gemara now gives other drashas to explain Nebuchadnezzar. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan kol yomo shel oisa rasha, referring to Nebuchadnezzar, lo nimtza schoik b'peh kol beria. He was such a vicious type of dictator that when he was in rule, all of the days of his life, there wasn't anybody who had laughter in his mouth. Because of fear from Nebuchadnezzar, Shemar, it states in the pasuk, Nocha shokta kol haaretz patzchu rina. It was silent and still the entire land. Then it bursted out with rina, with jubilation. Michlal de adhashta loy havarina. It follows that until now, then there was not any jubilation. There was no laughter in anybody's mouth when Nebuchadnezzar reigned. One cannot stand in the house of that Rasha. Shenema says, Usi'im yirakdu shom. And the demons, they dance over there. A person would stand there, the demons would go away, because the demons are only a place where there's no people, and that would be against the Gzeiras Hashem. Rabbi Yehuda Marav, B'shasha bikesh oisa Rasha, lasas lo oisa tzadik. Now we go back to the story that he wanted to have Mishkav Zacher with Tzidkiyahu. So it states over here in the name of Rab, B'shasha bikesh oisa Rasha, lasas lo oisa tzadik. The time that Nebuchadnezzar wanted to then do that abhorred act with Tzidkiyahu, that tzaddik, kach nimshecha orlosoi, sholosh meyos amma. His orla, his foreskin was drawn 300 amos. This foreskin of Nebuchadnezzar to embarrass him. V'haisa machazeres al kol mesiba kula. And it went around to the entire party, all of the other people, all of the other kings that were there. Shenemar says, Sovata kolon mikavoid. You were satiated with humiliation instead of from glory. Shesei gam ata v'ha'orel. Drink also you, the uncircumcised. Orel begematria sholosh meyos have. Orel is the gematria 300, and therefore this is the remez that the foreskin of Nebuchadnezzar was drawn 300 amos. V'omer Rav Yehuda Marav, b'sho sheyorad oisa rasha legehinim. When Nebuchadnezzar went down to Gehinnom, all of the inmates of Gehinnom made a big rash. Omru, they said, Shema limshol aleihem hubo, referring to themselves, maybe he came to then be moishel on us. They were still frightened. Oi, or perhaps, Lecholois Kamoisim Huba, or maybe he's coming to become weak like us who are here. Shinematz has been the pasuk, Gam ata chuleisa kamoinu. Are you also, it's a question, are you also chuleisa kamoinu? Are you also going to be weak like us? Eileinu nimshelas. Are you going to also perhaps be moishel over us? Yatis the Baskel went out, V'amran stated, Mimi na'amto, from who do you think that you are so beautiful? Radito redei v'hashkova es ha'arelim. Go down and then dwell and lie down together with the other circumcised ones in Gehenna. Eich shovas noiges shovsa madheva. How did the one who was noiges, how was he shovas desisting? And how was madheva, the golden one, also desisting? Explains the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Marav, shovsa uma zu sha'omra. This nation referring to Bavel, desisted, as she stated. Top of Kuf Nun Amud Aleph, midoid v'havei. It's a contraction of the two words of madheva. Midoid means measure out, v'havei, and give. That means that Bavel, they drew such a amount of taxation, they didn't want to count it all. So therefore they said, just measure it. All of that taxation that they required, that they levied on everybody else. Vika da'amid are those that said, Sha'omra me'oid havei, below mida. That's again a contraction of the word madheva, that refers to that they said that much, so much, give and do not measure. And it's explained what is the difference between the first mahalich and the second mahalich. The first mahalich says it was so much that they were too lazy to count. They said just measure. That means give in measurements. Whereas the second one, it was so much that they couldn't even measure it. It was so much the levy of taxation. The Gemara now brings the next pasuk, Urvu yatiras husvas li, and you increased and became even addition to me. Omar Yirmiyahu bar Abba Melamed. This is referred to HaKadosh Baruch Hu after he punished Nebuchadnezzar for 7 years, lowering him to be like the animals. He then raised him up again to his monarchy, and it says Urevu Yatira. You're going to have additional times of being a melech. Husvas li. It's going to then be even in addition. Gemara explains, Amar Yehuda Marav Yirmiyahu bar Abba melamed sherochav al ari zochar v'kosher tanim beroishay, that Nebuchadnezzar, he rode on a male lion and he tied a snake to its head. L'kayim mashenemar, like to then mekayim what it says in the pasuk, v'gam es chayas hasode nasati lo la'avdoi. I also will give you the chayas hasode, that they should then serve you. Whereby Nebuchadnezzar was at such a strong position, Klal Yisrael was told by Hashem not to go and fight against Nebuchadnezzar. If you do, then he will overpower you, and you'll then fall to his hands. HaKadosh Baruch Hu then made him even more powerful, so that he was able to then even be shoylet on the Ari and on the Tanin.